it is possible. And I see her really as an inspiration for both of our kids, but certainly for myself, that it's never too late to change. There's no problem that's too big to tackle. And with, a strong commitment to success, you can do anything.
Welcome to the Juggling the Chaos of Recovery podcast, where we focus on health and wellness and overcoming all types of addictions. You're in the right place if you're a mom, dad, sibling, or caregiver who has a loved one who is or was struggling with an eating disorder or any other kind of addiction. In a time where everything seems heavy, I'm here to bring you a very real, yet lighthearted take on what the heck we're all supposed to do with our lives while we care for our loved ones who are struggling. One thing holds true throughout it all. You can't juggle the chaos without smiling. At least a little bit. Well, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Moira Gorski. So glad you are here listening today and coming back and sharing these episodes as well. I am grateful today for my guest, who is I've had a mother of a daughter, a couple of mothers of daughters who have struggled with an eating disorder and different addictions. And today I have a husband who's joining me, a husband of actually one of my very recent previous guests, Nicole McLeod. And if you haven't listened to that episode, I'll put it in the show notes for this episode. But today, Nicole's husband, John, is joining me. And I'm really grateful that you're here today, John, and really excited to have a conversation with you. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Moira, for having me on. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. And I am as well. And, just again, a casual conversation to talk about, like, as I shared with you before we went live, my reason for starting this podcast was to just share from where I sit in my seat of supporting my daughter and her disorder and her issues that she had. I had an eating disorder myself. And so it's been difficult to see perhaps things in my past that are repeating myself in my children. It's difficult to watch that, but I don't like to necessarily share my daughter's story. I just want to share my perspective of how that's impacted me, the things that I've learned through that. And so that's what I thought would be interesting, from your perspective, to just start from perhaps how you saw things developing, or did you see things that were concerning for you with from your wife's behavior and different things like that. And, how that kind of started when you started to, see things going on that were concerning for you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I would say that, knowing what I know now and looking back, I mean, there were lots of signs and signals and that kind of stuff that I clearly missed. But I would say that, going back to our honeymoon, I probably should have been aware of some issues related to alcohol that she was dealing with, not successfully, but being young and in love and maybe not really understanding addictions or abuse or any of that kind of stuff. Our life just continued to go on. So, we went about, having the kids and, the white picket fence, and, she was a teacher and extraordinarily good at her craft. And, we had our issues, and a lot of it was relating to alcohol, and particularly her drinking. I'm not a drinker myself. And, that just became, over the decade plus time that we were married, it just became a bigger and bigger issue. And again, looking back, I mean, I explained it away several different scenarios. I also, internalized a lot of it as maybe it was my old hang up with, alcohol and issues that I had from the past and all kinds of stuff. So there was a lot of excuses, but there was one particular evening where she had drank too much, and I was downstairs on the couch, as I would be, a couple of times a week. And because I was, couldn't just stand being around her. And, our daughter came downstairs and this was a preteen girl and looked at me and just said, "How long are you going to put up with this? This is not right." And that was sobering for me, no pun intended. in the sense that it was a slap in the face. I needed it. I needed that, I guess, confirmation, and I feel bad that I needed it from our daughter, but she was the one who delivered it. And so that morning, I told my wife that it had been enough. And, after a very tough conversation and maybe 36 hours, she agreed, went to seek treatment. And in the course of her treatment for her alcohol abuse, that's really where they uncovered this underlying thing that is really the big monster here, which is the eating disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they, approached her about leaving the alcohol treatment facility and not coming home, going directly to TK where she did her eating disorder treatment, she was very reluctant at first and angry and all of those things. But it was a defining moment, I think, in her recovery, because it was the first time when the alcohol was stripped away. So there was no more of that buffer that could hide the eating disorder. There was nothing that was masking it. And she really had to face it head on. And through that process, I think I've looked back and said that, there were a million signs that I missed. There were a million times when I should have been a better advocate for her, or I should have understood more, or I should have seen the signs. But, she was very, very good at hiding her disorders and her addictions. Certainly thankful for both treatment facilities for helping her see that there's a better way to life than what she was living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that, being a married person myself and, somebody that made a commitment many years ago, and, they say for better or for worse. And, I understand what you're saying. That's like, maybe there's signs that there's things, but you just go on. Right. And I don't know, I can totally relate to everything you said. It's like, well, maybe it's my shortcoming, or maybe it was my fault, or maybe it's not that bad. Or again, when I started to see the signs with my daughter, it was so like, no, that couldn't be like, but for me, it was so familiar, just the different behaviors and things like that. It was familiar to me. So it caught me off guard, but I didn't really want to believe it. And then it was like, well, I can just help her because I know what to do. And and so didn't need any outside help and those type of things. But, I find it interesting too, just as I'm a mom of 4 children. And I feel like, that was one part I wanted to perhaps talk about, if you're comfortable with that, just, the impact on your children, or, I know that things are on a better path now, and just how things are with healing and stuff with your children and relationships and stuff like that. I just know that the kids, be it good or bad, they see it all. And I think they sometimes keep things hidden for so long, but sometimes, like you said, they come and they call us out, or they share what they're thinking. And even though they might be scared or things like that, that must have been an interesting moment for you when your daughter confronted you, but probably a pretty brave moment for her to feel brave enough to come down and say something to you.
Well, no question. And I think, for the kids, it was they only saw disordered behavior from their mother. They only saw someone who was struggling and someone who was really challenged with day-to-day life because of her, illness. And so, my daughter and my relationship has always been very close, much closer than she was with her mom. And I know that was a big point of contention for certainly my wife, but also my daughter. The girls want their moms, and here she is stuck with her dad as her person, and still to this day, I mean, I say she's my best friend. I'm very fortunate that, I'm really close with both my wife and my daughter, as just really good friends, as well as, my family. But I think what they saw was certainly restricting in eating. Like, again, the eating disorders were really masked by the alcohol. So when there wasn't alcohol involved, there was a lot more restricting behavior with the foods. And I think of like when we would travel, it was never easy to find a location to eat. Sometimes, as much as we like it or don't like it, you got to end up at a fast food location when we're off on the road for basketball trips and you got 30 minutes to eat. And those were never easy trips. Those were never easy conversations because my wife had restricted what she ate and would obsess about what she didn't eat or when she had to eat so much that it almost just became ingrained in our day-to-day life. And I go back and I think about it, and I always just thought she only liked salads. I always just thought she didn't really have a big appetite, and so it was one of those things where it's like, okay, you look at it, it's like, no, this is someone who was struggling, so restricting so tightly, that's all they ate or that's all they drank or they obsessively exercised, and you chalk it up as that. But really what it was doing, it was covering up all those behaviors. So in recovery, it's probably my favorite thing is to watch the relationship that has been rebuilt between my daughter and my wife, or our daughter and her mom, because they now are, our best friends, and they now have this relationship with each other that they didn't have before. And it's really rooted in just pure raw honesty and understanding that none of us are perfect. And by the grace of God, we're still a family and we're still supportive of each other. And that mom is going to do what she needs to do to be well so that she can be well with us. And that is the best outcome that we could ask for here. And she works so hard, Moira. She works so hard every single day on her recovery. And it shows in the relationships that she's been able to rebuild, in the connections that she's been able to make, and just in her everyday life. She's more giving, she's more supportive, she's more loving. You can tell it's like she's enjoying life now as opposed to just getting through every single day. And it's been amazing to see, and it's a lot of hard work, but it's possible. It is possible. And I see her really as an inspiration for both of our kids, but certainly for myself, that it's never too late to change. There's no problem that's too big to tackle. And with, a strong commitment to success, you can do anything. And she has really blown us away with her commitment to doing whatever she needs to do to be the best wife, mother, person, human that she can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I get it. Eating disorders, any other addictions, they take that person away from us. Because they get trapped in that struggle, trapped in that addiction, trapped in that disorder. And it ends up, like you said, it's secretive. They hide things, they hide themselves. They want to be small. They want to be hidden, that type of thing. And I think it is a beautiful thing. I know it is a beautiful thing. And I love the way you told that story. I know it for myself that, when my daughter, again, was away, when she was struggling, I just wanted my daughter back. And not, I didn't want her disorder back. The times that I said, you know what, you're not allowed to come home because you're not well. It was a difficult statement to make, but I wanted my daughter, but I didn't want that disorder. I don't want that addiction. I didn't want that in the house anymore. I just wanted my daughter. And when we have somebody, be it your daughter, your wife, your son, your whoever, when they're living committed to recovery, it is a beautiful thing. And it's wonderful to have that, because I love the fact that my daughter is back, and yes, she's physically back here, but I see that she's also back. And again, that must be beautiful to watch, again, that relationship, because it almost brought me to tears just thinking of, with my own daughter, to have that relationship that we're now rebuilding. And like you said, it's about honesty, because I was tired of all the secrets. It's nice when there's no more secrets, and relationships are based on honesty.
Yeah. My wife always says secrets keep you sick, and she's absolutely right. And I would say that, we've been married almost 17 years now. And I feel like, the last, just shy of 2 years since she's been in recovery, it's like a whole new relationship. I married this amazing, beautiful woman who was flawed and broken and insecure and hurting and all those kind of things. And now I'm married to that same person, but she is strong and empowered and committed and loving. And and it's the same person, but it's not. And to see the joy that she's getting out of life being healed is really amazing. And you talk about not having that person in your house. I mean, recovery is not perfect, right? We all have missteps, and one in particular that I remember is she was obsessive about weighing herself constantly, always had to weigh herself. And there's nothing good that comes to that. Who cares what that number is? What does that mean to anything? I mean, it's BS, right? So at one point in time, the instruction was to remove the scales from the house. Originally it was, you could have it twice a week. And as you know, some of this stuff has to be incremental, right? So, and then it became, okay, no, we're going to remove it from the house. But because she was, not well physically, there had to be some type of a check on her weight so that we knew that she was actually making progress. So, I'd weigh her once a week and she'd have to turn around and we'd cover her head and all that kind of stuff. Well, here I am thinking, oh, this is great. This is working. She's getting better, all this kind of stuff. Well, little did I know that she actually went out to the store and bought her own scale and was hiding it from me so that she could continue her behaviors of weighing herself and monitoring her own weight. And for me, I think it was probably one of the most, I don't know if I would say hurtful, but I was naive in the fact that it would be as easy as I maybe thought it was going to be. But I was also taken aback at the sneaky behavior, I should say, or some of the secretive behavior for this stupid scale. But again, that was one of those things where, it was 2 or 3 days, I think, after she did it, she came clean to me and admitted it. And which I thought was huge, right? Because she was very embarrassed and all that kind of stuff. I mean, she didn't want to do it. It was, it was the disorder that was making her do it, So I think having that come out too, and just having that honest conversation, and for me, understanding that it's a lifelong struggle. The eating disorder, particularly, it's tough. It's really, really tough. And, we live in a very, very prevalent diet culture where everything is diet or sugar-free, or, everyone's focused on everyone's, appearance and weight and all of that stuff. So it's constantly beat into your head. So it's, like we talk about, she can avoid bars or restaurants or liquor stores or that kind of stuff, right? You can stay away from alcohol, but you got to eat every day. You can't stay away from food, right? So when your disorder is food related, it's something that every day you're fighting with. And that's a constant struggle. And I know that she's fighting every single day for it, and ups and downs, but every body is beautiful. And that's really what the path she set out here is, that this is real. This is important. And this is a lifelong battle that she's going to be fighting and be very successful with, I believe.
Yeah. Like you said, the world and the way that we talk to ourselves, we look at each other, the things that we value, and Hollywood and all of that stuff, it doesn't work in our favor, if you will. So, or it doesn't help those that are recovering from an eating disorder. It's a day by day, a continual journey that, because some people, there's this conversation, this two sides of like, oh, recovery is possible, full recovery is possible, or maybe you're just gonna, you're gonna struggle with for the rest of your life. But truly believe that, recovery is possible. I know that it is. And it's one of those, I think we all continue to learn as time goes on, and things get easier and sometimes they're hard, and then they get easier and stuff like that. So it is a continual, as much as we've talked about that so many times with our daughter, like we wish we could just snap our fingers and it's all over. It just doesn't happen that way. But if the path continues to improve or go up or whatever, visualization you want to use, then that's the good thing. But knowing that there are going to be those ups and downs. And I just want to talk to them about that maddening, like that secretive things, like the scale thing and just the hiding things. It's just, and I always would tell my kids, just on a, mom kid basis, I'm like, you know what, it's better if you tell me, about whatever's going on, be it that you broke the table or you drank the beer or whatever. It's better if you tell me like now than like if I find out later, because it's like so maddening when you find out later. And then, it's a similar type of thing with, again, the secretive thing. And, I know that there's people that have bulimia and different type of other disorders. And, I've seen on support groups, like these moms, they find things like bags of vomit and bags of like things that are just hidden. It's just like, oh, it's maddening,
Yeah. And it's not behavior that someone who necessarily with the right mind frame would ever engage in. And I think that's the other thing too, is understanding that the struggle is real for so many people. And also for my own understanding is that I had lots of, character flaws and shortcomings, and, I was broken in a lot of regards too. And whether that happened before, after, during, I don't know, but I know that in the course of her healing, I've been able to, work really hard on healing myself, which I don't know if I would have had the strength to do had she not set forth on that path on her own. So, I give her a lot of credit for that too. And I just say, in a world where people are judgy and really based off of appearance and all that kind of stuff, it's not about that. I mean, it's really about the content of your character and who you are as an individual. And, whether you weigh 300 pounds or 30 pounds, the point is, just have a good, pure heart. And really that's all we want from people. And it's unfortunate that value is placed on people's physical appearance, certainly based on their weight, almost initially. Right. And that's something just as a culture, we do really bad in this country. It's everyone's looking for this perfect, skinny, fit body and stuff like that. And everybody's different. We've all seen the before and after pictures, right? Where someone's before and then after they're working out. Well, if you check in at the after, generally they end up back at the before again. And if you could follow that logic, it's yo-yo, right? And everybody's body is different. I know that even in our own children, my daughter's body is different than my son's body. And that's the bodies they're born in. And those bodies are beautiful, regardless of how much they weigh or how tall they are or not. And that's something that we're really trying to instill in our household, is that none of that stuff matters. And the comments about people's appearance based on, anything other than what is positive about them is really not helpful.
Right. So very true. Yeah. And it is not about the food. It's not about the weight. It's not about the, there's just so much more to people, like you said. And if we can lead with love and show other people love, then I think that that's a really great place that we can, all lead from. I was going to ask, like you talked about your own healing and discovery and things like that. Like, were you involved in any type of family therapy during Nicole's treatment, or did you just seek things out on your own for your own therapy? What did that look like?
So we did family therapy as part of her treatment initially at the inpatient alcohol treatment facility. So that was part of it. Of course, this is going on at the peak of COVID. So everything was via Zoom. Admittedly, I was just really angry and hurt and all of those things. And, I think all four of us were, but certainly those of us at home were feeling a lot of different emotions, but I was not handling things well at the beginning. I thought you could just stop drinking, I just thought, okay, you could, maybe just eat an actual meal, and not understanding. So that was something that I know, we had an extraordinary therapist that was our family therapist that we picked up through her in-treatment alcohol facility. And he stayed with us for a year, and he was amazing. I mean, he was a godsend, and he took a very angry, ill-informed, dare I say, combative client on in me, and really, turned me into someone who I see it now. I get it now. And, I'll be forever grateful for him for doing that for us. And he was able to have conversations with my wife and I and the kids that were able to, I think, get us all on the same playing field, which then allowed us to kind of get in unison as a team and really attack this thing together. The kids, they saw their own therapists as well. And, I did some Al-Anon groups. I did that a couple times. But I think for me, really just, I really dove into my faith, and I've been leaning heavy on that, but also really just working on being a better person myself, but just understanding, that everyone's struggling with everything. There's a lot of stuff out here to deal with. So just having compassion and understanding for people struggling is really been the biggest thing to help us heal. But the therapy was huge. It was huge. It was a way for us to speak open and honestly with each other, without fear of retribution, and that was, there were some times when we would get off our calls and, we would need a minute or, there would be some other conversations, but they were always rooted in love and rooted in healing. And we've laid it out there, warts and all. We're putting it out there because that's the only way you can really get, the real healing is just say, look, this is it. Be raw, be emotional, be open, and then accept all the love that can come in from it. And therapy really, it made that possible personally for me in a way that I never thought would be possible. And I know that she gets great benefit from her ongoing therapy, both for her alcohol treatment and for her eating disorder. Shout out to the mental health professionals out there. Just really fighting the good fight.
Oh yeah. I would always say to the therapist in the treatment facilities with my daughter, I go, you're going to get an extra crown or two, when you get to heaven, because, their work that they do is just very incredible work that they do. I agree with you. Family therapy can be so helpful. We were so grateful that this last stay for our daughter, she got hooked up with a therapist who, my husband would say the same thing. She was a gift from God and she was incredible. But what I love about family therapy is what you spoke to is there's a neutral third party there that can help to navigate the way through those conversations and come to that table so that the struggling person can explain, but also the other people, the kids, the husband, the spouse, or whatever, can also explain from their point of view, how they're feeling and how that sounds to them when the daughter says this or the wife says this, and just gives you that a safe space. And this was the first time in 7 years that we had ever had that great, that therapy and even so, what I thought was cool about ours is that she got my husband and I on the phone or Zoom or whatever we were doing, a few times before our daughter even came in, so that she could understand the dynamic of us as parents of her and us as the mom and the dad and the wife and the husband, just to get our perspective so that she could use that, if you will, use that knowledge to help, with our daughter. But then it helped as she brought our daughter in, then we brought the siblings in. And so it was hugely impactful. I can't say enough about family therapy. I had plenty of people say, have you done any family therapy? And I'm like, no, we haven't really found the good one. And we found a good one. And it sounds like you did too. And I also would like to give light to I think we all need our own therapy. I commend you for having your kids in therapy too, because we just all need a place that we can go and process what we're doing, be it a regular therapist or a spirituality group or your religious group or whatever, a place to go, or the 12-step programs. I've been to plenty of those, a place that you can go, just feel like you're heard and that somebody can help you process what you're feeling through all of this.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's cathartic just to get the words out, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just to really express, kind of what you're feeling. And I did not understand certain things, that would maybe trigger her, upset her. And much like she didn't understand for me. And that stuff came out at therapy, and we talk about, she was in, at TK for, I think 43 days or something. And, so let's say 6 weeks, those 6 weeks for those people there, they're just 6 weeks out of the 52 weeks in the year. But those 6 weeks built or helped this woman build her life back, or at least build the foundation of getting her life back. And so while it was 6 weeks for them, it was a lifetime that it saved us from, and also is breaking the curse. This, the alcohol, the eating disorder, this stops here. This is not going to go on our family line. This is not something that, knock on wood, is going to be passed on to our children or passed on to their children. You know, the disordered thinking or maybe, pig-headed thought process that I even had, this is something that's going to stop. It stops here, and it stops with my wife and I. And there's power in that, saying no, no more of the BS. We don't want to live with all those distractions and any of that kind of stuff. And we're going to just, speak truth with a pure heart. And that's how we're going to live. And all that stuff is, built out of the healing that's really been guided by, the therapy.
Right. Yeah. And, I've said many times on this podcast is that we do have this opportunity to break those generational patterns that have happened year after year after year, be it with eating or way that we talk to other people or whatever it is. When we choose to step into this space of healing, it's a wonderful opportunity that we get to. I mean, we can talk about the past, we can learn from the past, but I think it's a wonderful place when we step in. And like you said, it stops here. And so you can stop that for the generations to come. So I commend you for that. And kudos for you, for, all of you guys for taking that stand for yourself, but also for those that are going to come after.
Yeah. And what I say sometimes, I feel like we have the keys now. Like, I feel like we're in control of this thing now. And before, it felt like we were just, passengers. And there's huge power in that. When she, initially started her recovery, it was something that she wasn't open and honest about. I mean, she wasn't open about. She kept it to herself. She was recovering quietly, as she would say. And at some point in time, and I don't know if it was, maybe the 6-month mark or something like that, but she kind of flipped and she started, as she says, recovering out loud. And that has been so impactful, because now she can, she could speak about her recovery empowered. She could take pride. I mean, I am proud of my wife, who is a recovering alcoholic. I am proud of my wife, who is struggling with an eating disorder. I am proud of the strength that she shows to get through every single day. And having those keys, as we say, gives you insight into seeing other people that may be struggling with things. And I've been able to reach out to friends that, in a manly way, so to speak, guy to guy, and just be like, look, maybe I see this, or, maybe you could do this a little bit differently, or maybe, just take a step back. This is the way they're hearing it. And that is very empowering. And also it's beneficial to let people know where things can go and where the recovery is. And my wife's been very active on her Instagram page, sharing tidbits of recovery, but also sharing struggles and honesty. And there's been so many people that you would not think, which is kind of a funny statement, but you wouldn't think necessarily would be struggling, right? But what does that person look like? What does that person, I mean, it doesn't mean anything. We're all struggling with something, right? But people that have connected with her through this, social media, that, are people that have been my people my whole life, friends that I've had since childhood, that are reading what she's saying and watching her recovery and sharing the strength that they're getting from that, and it's the fact that she is recovering out loud now, as opposed to in quiet. I mean, secrets keep people sick, and she's not keeping secrets anymore. She's speaking loud, and it's really impacted, I think, more people than we'll ever know. And it's just, it's such a blessing, and her strength to do that every single day is admirable. And I'm just in awe, with her and what she's accomplished and what she continues to accomplish. And like I said, it's every day is a battle, but it's a battle every day that she chooses to win. And it's, I love her for it so much.
Yeah. That's awesome. And, they say that when you continue to tell your story, I mean, I've heard it from Chris Herron. If you know him, he was a pro basketball player and got messed up with drugs. And he came to our high school. He goes around and talks to high school kids and to others. And he said that. He said, I continue to tell my story because it is part of my recovery. It's part of keeping me on that path. When I like Nicole, she's living her recovery out loud. When you do that, it's part of your keeping yourself on that, good road. It's all really good. I know that one of the things that I wanted to bring up to you and ask you, because I really learned this, I thought I knew about boundaries and things like that. And I have learned so much about just so many different things about boundaries for myself, what's acceptable in our house, those type of things, what I'll accept, or, again, boundaries is a way that we show other people how to treat us. What would you say about boundaries? Have you learned different things about boundaries, or have things changed in your house in regards to that, or in your relationship?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I think one of the things that I identified in my own self is that I'm very codependent, or I was very codependent. And yeah, I see you raising your hand. Yes. So, and that was interesting because when we first started therapy, I think our therapist probably identified that right away. I mean, I probably had a big giant red nose on of codependence. And, I vividly remember my first reaction is I've read up about codependence and I'm not codependent. I mean, it's ridiculous. And, if I were being honest, I mean, I'm a gold medal world-class Olympic winner codependent. So I think just kind of understanding that. And one of the things that, from a boundaries perspective is sometimes I'll slip into that behavior, or sometimes I'll have a codependent comment or thought or something like that. And in my mind's eye, I just want everyone to be happy and good and healthy and all that kind of stuff. But really, I'm basing my own happiness and healthiness off of someone else. And that's obviously not appropriate. So, my wife will tell me, you got to stop. You're being codependent right now. And, this is the person who's in treatment, who's telling the person who's air quotes not in treatment that you're displaying disordered behavior. So I think just the honesty is, and if she's struggling with something, or if she needs a moment, she takes it. She's very prideful, or she's very intentional about her morning prayers and her readings and, her routines when it comes to the things that she needs to do for her own mental health and just attacking every day positively. And so, we give her the time to do that. And we understand that when she's ready, she comes out and she attacks the day with us. And really that's, for us, it's just about being open and honest and understanding, what we can do and what we can't do, and working together on the things that, are shortcomings of our own that we can lift each other up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it does, you said, get back to that understanding. I think there's that book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, seek first to understand. So if we can understand what the other person's perhaps going through, then we can, I think, be less judgmental and, stay in our own lane and those kind of things. So, yeah.
And to that point, I don't, sorry to interrupt, but I don't, still to this day, I don't understand the eating disorder. You know what I mean? Like, I get she has it. I know it's a real thing, but I don't understand it. I don't, my wife's physical appearance is the last thing that I'm concerned about. Her weight, or whether her jeans feel snug on her, I could care less, and so I would say that I don't necessarily understand it as much as I recognize that it's something she struggles with, and it's not for me to even understand. It's just for me to make sure that I'm being as supportive and as helpful as I can be from my perspective, but, I say that to her honestly. I mean, some of the stuff I don't get, it doesn't make sense, but where before I would say, I don't get it, doesn't make sense. Now it's like, look, I don't get it, doesn't make sense, which sounds much different in the inflection is, but what can I do to help support you? Or, like I don't say, hey, you look great. Your energy is great today. Or, I really love that color on you, or something like that. There's ways that you can even deliver compliments that could be hurtful to someone who's struggling, so just really getting the correct verbiage and thought process across is really important, because it's a tough thing to understand. It's a really, and having an eating disorder is, it's got to be one of the worst, because it's something that, it doesn't seem like it should be as debilitating as it actually is. And it's you need to eat to live. So if people struggle to eat, living is almost secondary, and it's unacceptable.
Yeah, it is. It's like something that, I know I went through one myself in college, but still, that was a long, long time ago. And when you watch others, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. When you think that you got to figure it out, then there's something else. So it is, we don't necessarily have to understand it, but like you said, understanding how to support them is super important.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, right. Well, as we wrap this time up, again, I so appreciate your perspective and your time with me today. It's just really good to hear other people's points of view, and again, how they're working through things and supporting those that are struggling. And as I said, sharing stories, I think the more that we can share with other people, we can provide that hope to others that there's a better way, that there is recovery, there is love, there is a place of healed relationships, and, again, living together in love and recovery. So I appreciate this. As I say to all my guests, any last words that you'd like to leave our listeners with, just, as we finish up today?
I would just say, love each other, love yourself. That's, I think, really what I want to try to get across is, I am merely a spouse of an amazing woman who is, struggling every day to be well and fight for her family. And I'm very thankful to be standing right next to her, fighting with her. And I just ask that everyone understands that, it's easier to be nice than it is to be mean. It's easier to be kind than it is to be rude. And just, love one another is really the most important thing. And I appreciate you, allowing, these words and these conversations to get out there, because, as I tell my wife all the time, you may not reach everyone, but if you reach one person, if you change one life, even if you improve someone's life in a very small way, just by sharing your story, then it's all worth it. And I know that, she has struggled for the better part of her life, but in this very, short, but feels like long period of her recovery, she has done so much good for the world, but she has saved our family. And really, that's all possible, no matter how deep the struggles are. There's hope, there's healing, and you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I, would say, obviously she had an impact, because again, my daughter was at TK a short period of time. Your wife was there a short period of time. As your wife so nicely said on her interview, my daughter had an impact on your wife, but your wife had an impact on my daughter, to the point that she came into my office and said, there's this lady, Mom, you might want to contact her, because I think she'd be a good guest on your podcast. So it's all good that we can, that we got connected, and I love that we're able to share these stories. And again, thanks for your time today, John. I really do appreciate it. And I love to hear these stories of, again, I know the road's not always easy, but I love that you're supporting your wife, and that your family's on that path to healing as your wife continues to recover too. So thanks for joining me today. Again, thanks, listeners. Please do share these episodes, because again, we know that, and I say the same thing. I don't know how many lives, and I'm not saying I got to help all these people, but if I can help one or two people by sharing these stories, then it makes all our efforts worth it. So again, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, head over to iTunes and leave me a 5-star review. Share it with others, and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. I've got a tribe over on Facebook, so head over there and search for Juggling the Chaos of Recovery Podcast Tribe. And do you know somebody who has a story to share, a story of recovery and hope? please let me know, as I'd love to feature them as a guest on one of these next upcoming podcasts. And perhaps you're looking for a community of like-minded, collaborative, and supportive people who cheer each other on as we strive to improve our lives. If that sounds like something you've been looking for, schedule some time with me. You'll find the links in the show notes. Let's talk, and let me help you find your way. And I'm here to tell you that you're worth it.